Hey, Sound Up fans, it's Mark Goodman here. To stay connected to everything happening in the world of music, make sure to subscribe to this podcast, Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light. Join the conversations, experience live events, and be a part of the podcast. To get in on the action, check out our website at sounduppod.com. Like and follow us on social media at sounduppod and email us at connect@sounduppod.com.
This is Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters.
I'm Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
And this week on Sound Up, musician, author, and DJ Peter Wolf joins us to discuss the incredible stories in his new book, Waiting on the Moon. Artists, poets, drifters, grifters, and goddesses.
That was a fun conversation. You guys all know Peter Wolf as the lead singer in the Geils Band, of course. But this book goes in a lot of directions you don't expect.
For sure. Talk about great stories, yeah.
This week was a bad week for drummers. The Who fired Zak Starkey for the second time in about a month. And Foo Fighters abruptly cut ties with Josh Freese. I don't know what's going on in the drumming community.
That's right. Plus, we've got our new music picks, your comments, and we've got a Pod Squad concert review. It's all coming up on Sound Up. Let's talk drummers. What the hell?
Let's talk drummers.
Is there something in the
Roger,
ether?
Feel free to jump in with any observations on the psychology of drummers and their relationships to bands.
Really crazy.
I mean, the one thing about the whole Zak Starkey story is I'm just like, at one point, does his dad step in like, you're going to get a call from my dad?
Wow. No. What is that? It's like your parents calling up the principal?
Yes, that's right.
Right. Well, so the story if you have not heard, because this one is especially bizarre. It was weird when they fired him first and then 5 minutes later rehired him. And now it seems, I'm going to speculate here. You guys tell me. I think this underscores some
discord,
friction between the two main dudes in the band.
It's an easy conclusion to jump to when we're talking
Yes.
Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey on the eve of their, as we talked about a week or so ago, their final farewell tour.
The story as it reads, The Who have fired longtime drummer Zak Starkey again 2 weeks after he was reinstated ahead of the farewell tour announcement. The news was made public first by Pete Townsend, who shared it with his followers on social media, and then confirmed by Starkey, who made his feelings about the decision clear. The musician, who of course is the son of Ringo Starr, said that he'd been asked to claim that this time he was quitting of his own accord. This would be a lie, he wrote. I love The Who and would never have quit. Can you believe that? Townsend has said in text written over a photo, after many years of great work on drums from Zak, the time has come for a change, a poignant time. Zak has lots of new projects in hand, and I wish him the best.
It's just weird. I mean, all of it's weird, of course.
It
and
really
it's
is.
extra weird. You're doing your final tour. Like, is this really that you want to switch up your drummer, knowing it's going to be for a couple of months, and then that's it? Like,
and this is the headline in front of the tour that you're getting,
right,
not the tour's happening. It's like,
it's either got to be so bad that you just can't be in a room with the guy.
Right.
In which case, why did they bring him back in? Why did the first firing not stick? Or, as you say, Mark, is this just about a tug of war between the two of them over some kind of control over what the band looks and sounds like?
The thing about this too is this is a band that, since they lost Keith Moon, struggled to find a replacement who could bring the tone, the sound, the vibe, the craziness that Keith brought to the band back into the band, so the Who would sound like the Who. Yeah. And they didn't sound like the Who again until they found Zak.
100%.
And now you're going to try and do that again. And well, the next story might have their drummer waiting for them, but you don't know.
But yeah, for the final impression you're going to leave people with, for the farewell tour, whatever it is, you're going to audition somebody new in that seat to play those songs? Like, it just seems absurd. Many things around The Who for many decades have seemed absurd. But
And Daltrey went into print saying that there was that show where he was sort of complaining that he couldn't sing the last song, The Song Is Over, because all he was hearing was drums. Is that the drummer's fault, or
No.
is that a
No.
stage monitor? Or
is that a mix issue?
It's a mix issue.
Yeah.
I
We've
don't
got
know.
sticks in our hands, knobs and stuff. We're not doing. Maybe they should call the tour Who's Drumming?
So, meantime, basically at the same time, drummer Josh Freese announced at the end of last week that he's been fired by Foo Fighters without warning and with no reason given. In an Instagram post, he revealed that he found out about the band's decision on Monday, May 12th, writing, here's the quote, "Foo Fighters called me Monday to let me know they've decided to go in a different direction with their drummer. No reason was given. Regardless, I enjoyed the past 2 years with them both on and off stage. I support whatever they feel is best for the band. In my 40 years of drumming professionally, I've never been let go from a band. So while I'm not angry, just a bit shocked and disappointed. But as most of you know, I've always worked freelance and bounced between bands, so I'm fine. Stay tuned for my top 10 possible reasons Josh got booted from the Foo Fighters list."
Maybe he'll weigh in on Zak too.
That's why maybe he's going to go drum for the Who. I don't know what's going to happen.
They could just swap.
Right? Flip him.
So I do not know.
I mean, everyone's speculating that this is to make room for Taylor's son, who played with the
Right.
Foos at the benefit, to take over his dad's position in the band. I don't know.
Lots of drummers coming to Josh Freese's support. Stuart Copeland posted, "This is lucky for the 5 other bands you play with."
Right.
Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater said, "Damn, I'm shocked. You seem to be the perfect fit." Chad Wackerman wrote, "Josh, I really loved what you brought to the band. That's just crazy. What new direction are they talking about? Polka?" So Foo Fighters have not said anything in the few days since this went down. They did announce their first 2025 show this coming October 4, 2025 show at the Singapore Grand Prix. So a Formula One show. First show since late 2024. First since Dave Grohl revealed that he had a daughter born outside of his marriage. He's appeared in public doing some of the Nirvana reunion shows, such as it is for Fire Aid and for SNL, but it will be the return of Foo Fighters. Any read, Roger? Any drum community, beyond the...
I mean, you had a guy come in who's, just like he said, his resume is spectacular. I think that's what's bumming him out the most is, now on his resume, like his last reference, you're going to call them up. You might not get that review that you want.
Wait a second. Is that to say, so Pete Townsend's going to hire a new drummer. Let me see your resume. Let me see your CV.
Well,
who have you played with?
Let me call your last employer.
Do you have any references?
So we got an email from our friend Devin of the Pod Squad, who had some thoughts on this firing. Devin emailed us saying, "Josh Freese out as drummer for Foo Fighters. Very peculiar move on many levels. Freese is quite possibly the best drummer on the market to fit that band. He's a consummate professional in addition to his unmatched ability. My only guess is they plan to install Taylor's son, but why make the move in this way? If that's the plan, wouldn't that have been the plan when they recruited Freese? Maybe give the disclaimer then and a little more notice than this. They notify him while he's on tour with APC with A Perfect Circle, no less. Crummy move for a band of their caliber. Selfish me is excited to see what Freese does with the open schedule. Maybe a proper APC headline tour is in our futures, ? Listen, the drummer's not making the call for which direction the bands are going. Apologies, Roger, but that's generally going to be the case. But if it is to put Taylor's son in the seat, okay, fine, fair enough, and everybody would understand that. But that means what he's saying is they never discussed this with me, and I was never given a reason or an explanation.
Yeah, like, hey, once he turns of age, he's going to probably take over. This is a temporary thing, blah, blah, blah.
Or after they did those tribute shows to Taylor, which was sort of the big moment for his son, coming out and playing, to sit down and say, hey, okay, we're going to do this for a while, but the idea will be to transition over.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to do it, have that conversation rather than just email the guy and say, okay, we've decided to go in a different direction.
Certainly have the conversation with the drummer, but also, I mean, the fans, as you say, Josh has a lot of support. He's a loved musician. And it's just, in both of these cases, these guys are professionals. What a shoddy sort of unthinking way to handle this. It's like it's an unforced error, kind of.
Unforced error, it is. And again, as with the news breaking of Dave Grohl's affair and this other child, that was born, so much of this we respond to because we know Dave as the nicest guy in rock, as, beloved by everybody, and, such a good dude and everything else, which I have, no reason. I mean, that's every dealing with Dave, that all has been true, but it's another one of those, okay, so that guy handles this way?
Yeah.
Like somebody who we know everybody likes, everybody gets along with, keeps everybody happy, and then this is how this situation gets handled. Part of the surprise is it's just so out of character and everything that we've come to, over all these years expect from Dave.
I don't know, something in the universe. Bad week for drummers. Something out there. So we got to talk about this trial that is captivating everyone. It's in every article that I read, every trade that I read, every regular paper. It's everywhere. People are dumbfounded with the Diddy trial. People watching gobsmacked and waiting to see what is the next call from the defense and from the prosecution. It's just been revealed in Variety that Cassie, who's been testifying, a pregnant Cassie Ventura, testifying, and they've, as I understand it, finished up her testimony before the weekend because literally she could have a baby at any moment, and they wanted to get her testimony out of the way. She revealed on Friday that she's expecting a $10 million settlement from Intercontinental in relation to the 2016 hotel incident at the heart of the Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial. I think we've all seen the surveillance footage from the Century City Hotel, first published by CNN back in May of last year, now being shown in court, depicting Combs violently assaulting Ventura in a hallway, dragging her across the floor by her hair. The footage has been used by prosecutors as evidence of Combs' physical abuse. During the cross-exam, Combs' lawyers asked if she had any pending lawsuits. Of course, she did file a lawsuit against Diddy in 23, but she revealed on Friday that she received a $20 million settlement. She said no when asked about this, later clarifying that she's expected to receive a settlement from Intercontinental after filing a demand against the hotel. She has reached the end of the settlement discussions, hasn't received the settlement. She thought it would be about $10 million. It just gets weirder and weirder. Ventura said in a statement, discussions concluded this time, emphasized that she has no financial stake in the results of Combs' criminal trial. Asked on Thursday why she chose to testify against her longtime ex-boyfriend, and she said, "I'm here to do the right thing. I can't carry this anymore. The shame, the guilt."
Obviously, this is the phase in the trial that's just going to be piling up horror story after horror story. It really is every day more atrocious sounding stuff coming out. The question is going to be what the defense brings to the table here. I saw a story this morning, can't honestly remember where it was from, maybe Hollywood Reporter, but maybe that was pointing to something else, saying that, it sort of looks like Diddy's defense here is going to be that he was a bad boyfriend.
Right, and he's not on trial for what that he's not on trial for abuse. Right.
So that's what we're going to see is, A, how much of this stuff ultimately is admissible, and B, what the defense looks like, because at this point, I think we're becoming, not that we're becoming immune or inured to hearing awful things about what went on in the Diddy camp, but that's, we all kind of know that at this point. It's just more and more detail. And then what is that actually going to stack up to legally is what we wait and see.
Well, that's sort of, it's not a loophole, but the idea that so much of the evidence doesn't speak to his charges. It speaks to him being an abuser and, to that footage. So how do they make that turn?
Yeah, the trial, again, as in all of these, the case is not, this is a bad guy.
Right.
The case is not, he was, that he was mean or he was abusive or whatever it is. It's what are the actual, what actually stands in terms of legal charges here, and how are they able to counter that? And of course we're all riveted by hearing more and more of these horrific specifics.
It is just awful. It seems, as I understand it, that the stuff that they need to be addressing is his, I'll call it like grooming, him traveling across state lines with people who are underage. That's the evidence that needs to be brought up, and really, because that's where the charges are, trafficking and so on. So it's ugly and horrible.
Stay tuned, as we expect that you will, because it's, as you said, everywhere that you turn.
All right, a quick look at some news in the world of music. We have a very special guest. Really excited to have this conversation with the one, the only, Peter Wolf. Peter has his new memoir out. And Alan, I think you agree, this is sort of an unusual memoir in that it's not just, and then we wrote, and here's why I wrote, and that concert was...
As you'll hear in our conversation with Peter, he very specifically, it's not the J. Geils story.
Yeah.
J. Geils is the band is a very small part. It's sort of in the backdrop of why he's doing the stuff that he's doing, but he's really not talking about what's happening with the band at all. More, it's all of these, this is the rock and roll Zelig we're talking about. Peter Wolf turns up he was an art school roommate of David Lynch. He's, of course, married to Faye Dunaway and all of the Hollywood, A-list scenarios that got him into. He saw, as we talked about with him, Bob Dylan playing in the Village and the folk clubs before he got signed. So retained a relationship with Dylan, like all of this stuff that has followed him through his life. And he's a smart and educated guy and a great talker and a long-time DJ, as we talk about here. So these are stories.
Great stories indeed. Peter Wolf joins us next. Want to welcome to the Sound Up stage, the Woofa Goofa Mama Tuffa.
Oh, Yamagama Goomaluma.
Hey now. Peter Wolf is here, and you know him certainly, well, many Boston people know him as the Woofa Goofa, but you may also know him as the lead vocalist of the Geils Band, and he's got an amazing new book out that, Peter, I'm surprised is, don't take this wrong, is as light on sort of backstage, tomfoolery, and way heavier on the incredible amount of people who you have just sort of bumped into, it seems. The numbers of legendary people you've bumped into or befriended over the years, it's nuts. I actually have a list. I'm not going to go through the list, but I just made a list. So Van Morrison comes up a lot. You paint an incredible picture of that guy. You guys were friends before Astral Weeks even came out. And your description of the guy sort of jives with what I had heard about him. I have never met him face to face. I've spoken to him. He seems like a difficult guy to be friends with. Would you characterize it that way?
No, not at all. Van's an artist, and many artists, go through moods, go through great periods of productivity. When I first met Van, which I described, he had just was taken out of New York. Apparently, this story gets very
Byzantine, yes.
Yeah, Byzantine, thank you. And also changes throughout the years. But he was involved with Burt Burns, and apparently there was some mafia people that he was sort of trying to run away from. And then in the middle of the night, according to Van, Irish mafia came down and plucked him out and brought him to Cambridge, Mass. And that's where we first met. When I was living in Boston, I came to Boston to study art school at the Boston Museum School of Fine Arts. And I was in a club, and this, guy comes walking in asking for the manager. And, I was a huge fan of Them, which was Van's first band, Gloria, Mystic Eyes, and so many.
Here Comes the Night, which you've been known to break into. Yeah.
Yes. And he was living in Cambridge, and he used to listen to my radio show, the Wolfa Goofa Mama Tufa radio show, making your knees freeze, your bladder splatter. If it's in you, it's got to come out. That's what rock and roll is all about. Give us a call during your stall. We're going to have some fun until the midnight sun.
He has not lost it, ladies and gentlemen.
And we were talking, and he just mentioned, he used to listen to this, guy on the radio late at night, and we were talking about gigs and music, and oh man, this guy plays all this wild stuff from Hank Williams to R&B. And anyway, once he realized that it was me, we became friends. And as far as getting back to the original question, which I always seem to kind of go down a long and winding road, I've never found Van difficult. And like most artists, moody, because they go through periods of transition of work. And Van was right in the middle of trying to get out of his contract with Burt Burns, which was the person that really first discovered Van for recording and was responsible for Here Comes the Night because he wrote it and gave it to Van. And then brought Van over to the United States where Van recorded Brown Eyed Girl. And as they say, the rest is history. And he and I continue to be friends.
There's so much stuff in Waiting on the Moon that's remarkable. There's all the music stuff, your history with Muddy Waters, your history with Dylan, all of those. But in some ways, it's these other parts of your life. You said coming as an art student, writing about the art world, the painting world, and then the Hollywood part of this story. And we're not going to just make you do the greatest hits here, but I could not get over your encounter with Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh,
yeah.
If I'm making the list of the rooms that I'm going to see that you were going to wind up in, showing up for maybe an audition, maybe not with Alfred Hitchcock would not be top of that list.
No, it was an audition. I was, as I explained in the book, handling a lot of the business affairs for the Geils Band. And I was out in LA, and I met a very powerful agent by the name of Freddie Fields. And I asked Freddie, I'm trying to see if I can, get a soundtrack for the band so we can record a soundtrack, because that would mean one less album that we would have to do and maybe get out of our contract. And so Freddie set me up with a meeting with Roger Corman, who did all those great B movies and started Jack Nicholson's career, Martin Scorsese's career, so many, De Niro, so many directors. And he's known for all those great drive-in B movies, King of the Bees, he was called. Mm-hmm. And I was about to leave LA, go back to Boston. And as I was packing, phone rings. He goes, "Peter, hold on. I got a meeting. Alfred Hitchcock at his home in Bel Air, 2 p.m. Don't be late." And it was Alfred Hitchcock. I couldn't believe it. I thought, he was, joking. Didn't know how to drive. It's all described in the book. But, getting up to the driveway, and he had this small house that looked like an English cottage because he was from England, Hitchcock and his wife. And as we drove up, the door opens, and there's that iconic, good afternoon. And
in your head, you're going,
I couldn't fathom it. And all during the visit, I had met him before very briefly at certain Chasen's restaurant, one or two places. But this was quite an encounter. And the basic of it was he kept offering me cocktails. And I was under the impression he was testing if I was going to be, if I was one of these, drugged out, drunken rock and rollers that won't be reliable. But in the book, there's this great sort of ending to it.
We'll leave the twist ending for those to read. But yes.
The surprise ending. The Alfred Hitchcock ending.
That's right. It's only fitting. Only fitting.
Right. See, that's Alan picked up on. That's yet another one of these stories. I jotted down just notes on some of the just random meetings. It feels like you're out. I guess you're with Faye Dunaway's publicist, Sue Mengers, and you're chatting. And I think it was the Russian tea room. And on the way out, sitting there, Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro come and sit down.
Right.
You're chatting with them. Then you get up to leave, and as you're walking out, oh, well, look over there. That's Glenn Fry and Steve Winwood. And you go, she leaves, and you sit down with them. And you didn't even finish that story.
No. You see, I didn't want, first of all, Mark, in answer to your original question, I didn't want this to be, as I thought about this book for many years, and I was about to release a CD. And I thought, if I just release another CD, I really, I was with the Geils Band for 17 years. I love, the Geils Band. This book explains, the beginning, middle, and the unfortunate end of the Geils Band in a chapter, right, from my point of view. But, I love my later solo recordings. And I figured if I just release another one, it would be in the ether in 48 hours. And I thought, well, maybe Peter Guralnick, a great writer who wrote a lot of the great books about Elvis and the biography of Sam Cooke and Sam Phillips and many Lost Highways, which is a classic for, Americana musical lore. He told me, Peter, you've been talking about writing a book for so long. You better write it before all the people you want to read it are dead. And so I figured maybe a book would be a better idea to focus on than, working on the album. And so I didn't want to do a kiss and tell book. I didn't want to do, well, I met this person, I met that person. When I started making notes, I, by chance, happened to meet so many incredible people that I thought I would write about them, because on some of the music books I read many of them, they talk about, well, we ran into so-and-so, but they don't really explain what so-and-so is like. So rather than it focus on me, I tried to bring alive what it was like to spend, have Muddy Waters hanging out in my living room and I was a young 18-year-old kid. What was it like, to meet Alfred Hitchcock? What was it like, to
John Lee Hooker.
John Lee Hooker and be hanging out with Elvin Jones, the great Coltrane drummer, and almost getting busted by the Knox Squad. But what was John Lee Hooker like? What was Muddy like? What was Howlin' Wolf like? What was, Faye Dunaway like? And there's a favorite writer of mine, Christopher Isherwood, and he wrote a book called Berlin Stories, which was turned into the play Cabaret and then the film. And he had a line in there, I am a camera with its shutter always open. And so I tried to be the camera and, be taking the pictures of Muddy Waters and all the different characters are in the book.
Did you have to fight an impulse at all? As you said, there's a chapter on the Geils Band. It isn't not present, but it's really not something that's threaded through this story. You could read this book and you'd be like, hey, is this cool guy? And he was a DJ, and yes, he was in a band, and this is all the stuff that happened to him. Did you have to, make a point of kind of pushing the band stuff to the side? Or, as you're telling these stories, that's also part of what's happening around the band? Or once you were kind of in that rhythm, were you able to keep the spotlight where you wanted it to be?
Well, Geils runs all the way through the book in different chapters. And that's exactly what I tried to do. I try to make each chapter like a short story. So there's 30-something chapters. And if somebody gets the book, they can pick up chapter 14 and say if they want to read about Van, or they can pick up chapter 30 about, having dinner at Julia Child's house. It doesn't matter because they're like little vignettes. They're short, some are longer than others. But the thing that I did not want to write about when I first began the book was I didn't want to write about my marriage, and I didn't want to write about the Geils Band. I just wanted to write these short stories about all these people I felt I was privileged to get to know or meet. And then as I was proceeding, the Little Brown, my publishing company, said, Pete, we're missing stuff about you and your life. And, can you try something? And I was having a conversation with a painter friend of mine who I ended up dedicating the book to. She, has ALS, which is a very serious disease. And she was helping me just organize stuff. And she had read a book about Chinatown and the making of Chinatown. And I was telling her, I remember being on the, lot of Chinatown. I was telling her some stories. And she said, oh my God, you got to write about that. How could you leave that out? I mean, you were right there. And so I decided to write a chapter about Chinatown, and then Faye came into the picture, and we had a very, intoxicating, all puns intended. We had a great marriage for 5-6 years, and we both were dedicated to each in our careers. And I loved being helping her with the films. She loved coming out on the road with the band. And then as I started to think about the Geils, rather than a lot of these musical memoirs where they go along, the bass player this, and they're all, you have to be into the band or the musician to enjoy those details. And I just figured I would do one chapter and dedicate it to the Geils Band, though they're in many different chapters.
Does it feel like it was a different time? I mean, you this starts with you going to the Village and seeing Dylan, back when he's still playing the clubs. Everything's gotten so big. The industries have gotten so big. Each lane has, music used to be kind of a cottage industry, few smaller lane, whatever. It was like a different community. I'm reading this and thinking, my God, that these worlds are banging off each other, that these guys are seeing each other, that it's movie stars, painters, rock stars, like all interacting with each other. Do you feel like that still happens, or do you feel like that was a time that's passed?
Well, certainly, the 60s were different than the 70s, and the 70s was different than the 80s, and time does change. I mean, even what we're doing now, we're on this technological aspect where 20 years ago, we'd all be together in a radio station. And so, things change is constant. And so, of course, the times have changed. When I met Dylan, I think it was the second week he had just arrived in New York. And so I got to witness him at a very early stage in his career. And previous to that, my sister got to meet him when he was still, out living in Minnesota and out in Wisconsin. And so, yes, so I tried to capture Greenwich Village in that era. I tried to capture what it was like being a musician and playing clubs, and the for instance, in my Sly Stone chapter, how I met Sly and the wild interaction between him and I, and also the heartbreaking downward curve of his life and career, though he's still with us, fortunately. So I try to capsulate it from my lens, and try to capture an era because it has changed.
I feel like you do, Alan, about when I was reading the book, all of these different villages, all of these groups banging off each other, as you said. You've lived quite the life. You have seen some huge changes go on, not only culturally, socially, but certainly in music. How do you feel about the way that things have evolved? Not only the music business, which you certainly touch on, and the difficulty with you and Atlantic and making the move and so on. But how do you feel about the evolution of where the business is, but also the music? Is there a place for someone making blues-based rock and roll anymore, like Peter Wolf would make?
It's hard for me to sort of philosophize, and that all I can say is that there's been changes, and obviously in the changes there's some positive, and there's some very positive things, and there's some extremely negative things. I know for my period when I came up, there was many clubs, and people would go to clubs, and there was word of mouth, and there wasn't the social media. And then someone might say, well, thanks to social media, or TikTok, I became a star overnight. And so there's, positive and negatives to both. But Mark, you might relate to this. I remember when you were signed by a record label, the challenge was, okay, what kind of album we're going to make? What's the songs? And then the big problem became, okay, what's the sequencing? And then
sequencing, remember that?
Then the real problem was, what's the cover going to be? And that was, the scope of making the record. And then all of a sudden came, great Kugla Mugla. What's the video going to be?
Yep.
And all of a sudden, it had nothing to do almost with the music track and the mix of the track. It was, everybody was focusing us on what's the video? What are you doing for the video? And so cover didn't mean anything. Or as would be
What was that like for you? There's a lot of artists who just completely crumbled in the video era and were not ready at all, and yet others, and I'm talking even about classic artists like Ray Davies, who blossomed. Video was great for you.
Well, no, it was in a challenge, but you have to think back to, we're talking about technology, we're talking about change. I mean, think about, we all know some of the changes that went on when films were silent and then became sound. Some adapted, some couldn't, and some bands just couldn't. I don't see Jimi Hendrix having to think about his video for All Along the Watchtower. Fortunately, he didn't have to think about it.
His TikTok.
So,
yeah.
And
10 seconds of Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, and so another thing to think about is, think about if you're a traveling musician or a comedian, and you're going all around the country, city after city, town after town, and along comes this thing called, in 1921, radio. On one night, more people can hear you within 17 lifetimes of traveling as a traveling artist. And so that, we don't think of it as that profound of a change, but it was as profound of a change back then for artists as the internet is now.
Yeah. But for the better, that's the question. Is it?
I can't be the judge of that. I mean, was MTV for the better? Well, for,
depends on who you talk to.
So it's just, artistically, one tries to adhere to the challenges that are in front of them. Some ignore them. For instance, Bob Dylan ignored them. I don't remember there being a specific Van Morrison video for, Domino or whatever songs came out at that period, Wavelength or anything. And some artists just chose not to go into that rabbit hole. So I really feel it's best. I don't think I'm the best one to judge. It's change. I understand the change, and we're right now witnessing the change by what we're doing now. If it's for better, for worse, it's certainly different.
Peter, we're going to let you out of here in a minute. I got one last thing. That's a quick question before we move ahead here. But when you sat down to start on this book, you said you've been talking about it for a long time. What's the first thing you sat down and wrote? What was the first thing when you said, okay, I'm doing this, that was the story that you put down on paper?
The first thing, I believe it was the Muddy Waters, because I had started a brief chapter for Muddy Waters in a Martin Scorsese book. He did a blues series that ran on TV, but the book was far better than the blues series. I recommend it. I think it's Martin Scorsese's Blues. I don't know if it's still available, but it has some great chapters in there. And there's a wonderful book that I don't think is available anymore by Michael Bloomfield. It's called Me and Big Joe. And I adored that book. And so I tried to, Truman Capote did a great book on short vignettes of different profiles of people, Marlon Brando, Humphrey Bogart. So I tried in my book to do these like vignettes of people that I admired, some in music, but all basically artists in one way or the other.
All right, Mark, want to hit our lightning round before we're wrapping up?
We will. There's so many questions that I would ask you. We'll ask you some questions that we ask to all of our guests. Like, just sort of,
I better get my lightning rod.
Yeah,
I better get my lightning rod. But I really appreciate the both of you for bringing light to the book, because in the book world, unlike the record world, it's harder to kind of have books become visible. Either, if sometimes even when a book's out, it's not necessarily in a bookstore.
Oh yeah.
It's just harder for people to come across a book. And, like for instance, just while I was doing this book, I came across Dr. John's autobiography, which is just wonderful.
It is great.
I highly recommend it. Miles Davis, though it's an as told to, I wrote all this book, but is a great book for those who are interested in jazz and Miles Davis. So there are some that are just outstanding, and books are hard to kind of find unless you hear about it or read about it. So I thank the both of you for giving me what's the cat's name?
That is Topaz, who just jumped into the
Topaz.
frame. Yes.
Good. Right.
All right.
Can I just, before we do the big questions, just that based on what you were just saying and where you started, the book is really, with all of these great vignettes, really precise. Is your memory that good, or are you a journal person, or you know what I mean?
Well, strangely, it actually is, and I'm not, good at where I left, my hat or whatever. Is it upstairs, downstairs?
Why did I come into the room again?
Yeah, exactly. In my prologue, I say, because there's dialogue, and I say I've tried to recreate the dialogue as best as my memory allows, and I tried to recreate the tone of what was being said. Because, for instance, there's an encounter with Bob Dylan where we had this long exchange, which, is one of my favorite, because I remember every time I, have to read that, I remember the moment, was so powerful to me and funny, at the same time. And, Muddy, I remember the last time I saw Muddy, it was so profound. So the memory, I had to do some research. If we have a quick second, I remember at one point, I'm walking down a hallway I described in a hotel. I was, on the Rolling Stones tour, and it was in Boston. And sitting in a room was Keith Richards on the floor playing acoustic guitar, Mick Jagger playing acoustic guitar, and Graham Parsons, who I knew, playing acoustic guitar. And they were all singing Merle Haggard's Sing Me Back Home. And then as I did research, I realized, wait a second, Graham Parsons died a year before that tour. So it couldn't have been Graham Parsons, but I remembered it being Graham Parsons. And then after doing some more research and talking to Keith, what it was it was Mick and Keith in the room playing acoustic guitars, singing Merle Haggard's Sing Me Back Home. And that's when Keith was telling me how he learned the song from Graham Parsons. And so little things like that, I really tried to keep as, accurate as possible. But sometimes memory does fail you.
Sometimes.
We do our best.
They say rock and roll never forgets. Well, it just needs to jog its memory a little bit.
Well, you got to just keep shaking, rattling, and roll.
Here we go. We got lightning round questions. First up, what was your first portable music device?
My first, a radio.
Transistor.
So a little transistor.
Yeah. It was, no, actually, it was a battery-powered non-transistor. It had tubes. It wasn't small like a transistor, but it would go with me to the beach, and it had these big. It might have had like 6, C-cell batteries, and that's what I carried around, and I was addicted to it because I was addicted to music, and I was fortunate enough in New York to listen to some of the greatest DJs that really taught me my college of musical knowledge, and I can quickly name them, but I won't waste all the time.
No, go ahead. I want to hear a couple.
Alan Freed was first, and then after Alan Freed came Jocko's Rocket Ship Show, and Jocko was oop pop ba doo. How do you do? The time right now is 11:15. And you listen to Jocko on the record machine, and then he'd play great music. And then after Jocko, I'd listen to the Magnificent Montague. And he talked real sexy talk to all the women and played beautiful ballads like Sam Cooke. And then after him was Live from Birdland, Symphony Sid, Babaloo, baby, doo doo. And so with all these great DJs, and I'm even leaving out quite a few, there was these great doo-wop DJs, Slim from Times Square Records. And so I just, as a kid, I'm talking about 10 years old. And then on Thursday nights, you can get in New York City, you can get WWVA Wheeling, West Virginia, loud and clear after 10 o'clock. And so I got to hear Bluegrass, the Stanley Brothers live. And so it was just another world. Talk about changing worlds. This is when AM radio was king, and it just offered so much.
Impossible question number 2. Which concert do you remember the most? Good, bad, or otherwise? Give me one that changed your life.
That's so easy. It was 10 years old, and fasten your seatbelts. You can check me out. It was Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Buddy Holly and the Crickets, the Everly Brothers, the Shirelles,
Goddamn.
the Chantels, coming out of a coffin screaming Jay Hawkins, Joanne Campbell, the Blonde Bombshell, Dickie Doo and the Don'ts,
Oh.
Dion and the Belmont. And it was a cavalcade of stars. And maybe I got a little bit mixed up between the Bronx Paradise and the New York Paramount, but somewhere within those shows, and most of them, there were at least 8 to 10, 12, 14 artists. And it was just amazing as a 10-year-old kid seeing Chuck Berry duck walking across the stage, Jerry Lee Lewis jumping on top of a piano,
Buddy
my idols,
Holly. Jeez.
Buddy Holly and the Crickets,
Oh,
and
man.
my idol, Don Everly. I mean, I was in love with Don Everly. You know, I just couldn't take my eyes off him. And so it was just, you know, for me, I became baptized and a prisoner of rock and roll from that moment.
That is a damn cavalcade indeed. All right, one more.
One more.
Okay, please.
This will be an easy one, not at all. Who is your biggest influence?
That really, I would, to answer that, I would
read the book.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. You put all those chapters together. There's been great teachers. There's been, you know, musicians that have guided me. There's, you know, my first encounters with hearing Elvis and Ray Charles, and, you know, witnessing the original Art Blakey with Lee Morgan, and just so many different experiences. And, you know, being dyslexic and having a fifth grade teacher sit down with me and really teach me how to read. That's as big as influence as, you know, anything. And I would say, if I had to pick one, I would say my father, because he was a man that wanted to be an artist, that was so artistically rich. He was always out of work, never had money. He died with just very little, but he taught me more, I think, than anyone.
And
what an excellent
portrait
answer.
of him.
Well, yeah.
And a beautiful portrait in the book of your dad and of your childhood, your family.
And when my father saw me coming home with Bob Dylan's first album, he said to me, "Hey, that's Bobby." I go, "What?" He goes, "Bobby." I said, "I didn't know we made a record." I said, "Dad, do you know Bob Dylan?" He said, "Oh, yeah." You know, Izzy, which was his first manager. "Oh, we go out to lunch all the time." And I couldn't believe it. So, you know, my father, who was himself a musician, a singer, at 14, he was a vaudevillian and worked with the Schubert Theater and traveled, you know, on a train all the way across the United States, you know, in these productions. So he was in show business, and there's a chapter about my dad, about one of his heartbreaking experiences.
For this and a billion other stories, Waiting on the Moon, Artists, Poets, Drifters, Grifters, and Goddesses is the book from Peter
Out
Wolf.
now,
Out
as
now.
we speak.
Thank you
Peter,
both.
thank you, man. Okay.
Stay well, stay healthy, and be safe out there.
Welcome back to Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light. Many thanks to the one and only Woofa Goofa Mama Toofa, Peter Wolf, stopping by to tell some stories. Really, really great. And I mean, this is unprompted. Go and get this book. It's such a fun read. And again, I know you're a music fan. You're listening to us. This is a different memoir that is so fascinating. And the stories...
There's plenty of music in it. When he's talking about Muddy Waters sleeping on his couch, when he's talking about, you know, touring with the Stones, there's plenty of stuff in here that you want to know about music. But don't you want to know about hanging out with Alfred Hitchcock?
Right? What? How? What? It's all in the book. All right. So as always here on Sound Up, we love hearing from you, the Sound Up Pod Squad.
You can always email us. We read an email from Devin earlier in the show. You can just type it out, send it, or you can send us a voicemail. Any of that can go to the address connect@sounduppod.com, where we got a concert review this week from our pal Ed, who saw Gene Simmons and Fantastic Cat.
Greetings, Sound Up. This is Ed Concert calling in with, you guessed it, concert reviews. The first one relates to your recent interview with Adam Duritz. It's the band Fantastic Cat. Adam sings backup on one of their songs. We went to this show solely based on the recommendation of our own Janet Bolts in Michigan, and she is not wrong in loving this band. They bill themselves as folk rock for pussies. So it shows the kind of humor they have, but they write great songs, great musicianship, and are really good guys. We met them afterwards, and I would highly recommend seeing them if you can. More recently, I got to see the Gene Simmons Band. Now, my experience with Kiss goes back to the late 70s when I saw Kiss, and the opening act was Bob Seger. But I've seen him a few times since then. Always a fun show. I love a big production. But I was a little hesitant about how Gene would be. Well, I was wrong. He was great. 76 years old, looked great, sounded great, was funny, was engaging, was appreciative, interacted with the audience a lot. He covered Zeppelin, he covered the Beatles, he covered Motorhead, and just put on a really great rock show. 2 guitars, bass, and drums. Really my thing. So Gene was way better than I thought he was going to be, and I would highly recommend even the casual Kiss fan to go see Gene Simmons. Good stuff. Thank you all much. We will talk to you later.
What great reviews. Well done.
Short, to the point, informative,
Yeah.
some color. Very nice, Ed. Roger.
Roger.
We
We both go to
instantly
Roger
turned
with the
to
Kiss
Roger.
fan among us.
I have a specific question that maybe you can answer, maybe you can't. He mentioned the Beatles cover, and I have read that Gene's been covering And Your Bird Can Sing in this set. What a crazy choice.
Well, Gene's he's an odd guy when it comes to that kind of stuff. He's got such a vast musical knowledge, and he's a huge Beatles fan. You know, him and Paul used to do kind of street corner harmonizing to Beatles stuff. So he's really well versed in Beatles music. And I think Gene's just having fun playing songs he likes.
And great to hear that he, on his own, with his own band, can be fun and funny and entertaining as well as rocking, and enjoyable.
I have not seen this tour yet, but I know of the musicians he's put behind him, and they are top notch. It's a great band.
All right.
And thank you for insight.
So we have some music picks before we roll out of here. If you are ready, I'm going to kick it off.
Yep.
If I might. I'm pulling one. It's a famous artist. I oftentimes like to promote artists that maybe people haven't heard as much or at all. But there's this guy Bono, and his new song just dropped is "The Showman" from this upcoming documentary, which is a documentary of the live show, which was based on the memoir. You can follow that. It's an Apple original. The film will be out at the end of the month on May 30th, and a 3-track live EP release is going to be available digitally and also on a limited edition 7-inch black vinyl. And the EP features live recordings from this one-man show inspired by Surrender, 40 songs, one story. Bono's Stories of Surrender begins streaming May 30th on Apple Plus, and The Showman is the latest drop from this. And this will be one of the things that's on the EP. If you did get a chance, if you were one of the luckies who got a chance to see that one-man show, then I would imagine you're going to be pretty excited. It was, I thought, an incredibly fascinating show and so beautifully written and executed. There was a gravitas to it, but a warmth at the same time. And I'm curious how the film is going to turn out. Sometimes when you shoot, like the Bruce Springsteen stage show that was shot was pretty good, but there's something about a live stage show that it's hard to capture on film. Bono, I think, is a pretty compelling guy, so he's going to, I think, shine through on this. But pretty exciting to see this. And we are all waiting for this guitar album that was promised us from you two before the end of the year, and I haven't heard boo about that. So that's my first pick. Wolf Alice. And Alan, I noticed that we both somehow picked the same one, and I'm wondering if I heard this for the first time because of a friend of ours who was a mixer. Is that where you wound up hearing about this?
No, I just heard it out in the world.
The album coming from Wolf Alice is called The Clearing, and it's been 4 years since their last one. Blue Weekend was their last one. And this lead single is pretty different, I think. Produced by Greg Kurstin. Ellie Roswell is the lead vocalist, and she's been playing guitar, and she made a point of saying with this new song and with this album that the way she put it is she sometimes hid behind her guitar. And at this point, she said, I wanted to focus on my voice as a rock instrument. So it's been freeing to put the guitar down and reach a point where I don't feel like I need to prove that I'm a musician. So this album called The Clearing is out August 29th, brand new and from Wolf Alice.
So yeah, first on the Bono track, I'm very interested. The film premiered at Cannes this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, end of next week will be going up on Apple TV, and really curious to see how the show. I mean, it was certainly staged in a very stylistic, very stylized, dramatic sort of a way. How that's going to translate to film, what that's going to look like, if it's going to hold up and connect in the way that the staging at the Beacon Theater did, we'll find out next week. I'm sure we'll end up talking about it the week after that. And the Wolf Alice song, yeah, I think you got to the points here, which is it is different. Greg Kurstin produced it, the guy who produced Adele and McCartney and a lot of
like
big
a pop
records.
Yeah.
And that she said, coming out from behind a guitar and wanting to, as she said, sing like Axl Rose and really put the focus on singing in front of a band as opposed to as part of a band in an interesting way. So Bloom Baby Bloom is the first taste of that. I liked it a lot, and I'm curious. And nobody sent it or told me or directed me there. I just wound up with it. And my other pick, somebody I remain sort of interested and confused by, and in good ways, a new song from Noah Cyrus. And I know I've said this before. I don't even know how seriously to take Noah Cyrus or what she's about or what's going on. But this song, which is called I Saw the Mountains, is almost like a pure folk song. I mean, because it's kind of got a lot of space, a lot of atmosphere to it. It's got sort of a little bit of an indie feel, but it's almost like the purest country song the Cyrus family has been responsible for in a long, long time. And it's a really pretty song. I don't know. I haven't really seen if there's an announcement on an album or what's coming from Noah, but I feel like this keeps happening to me, that like there's a Noah Cyrus song. It isn't what I expect at all when I think of Cyrus's. Then I really like it. And then I sort of don't think about her or follow up or pay any more attention. And I guess maybe I just really should. So whatever you may think when you see the Cyrus family name, good, bad, or otherwise, I Saw the Mountains from Noah Cyrus, I think is pretty damn impressive.
I heard it also over the weekend. Really cool. And I will say, just to complete the circle here on Wolf Alice, it was our friend Emily Lazar, who we've had on the show a couple of times, an incredible mixer, who did the mastering on this album, and it sounds beautiful. I'm going to shout her out. Let's wrap it all up. We know that you're going to want to listen to the stuff that we just pointed out. And if you do, to hear all the music that we talk about, you simply search our Sound Up soundtrack playlist on Spotify. You have to make sure to put the exclamation point after Sound Up, exclamation point, or maybe the easiest thing, sounduppod.com, and click the link to get to our playlist, the ever-growing playlist.
And while you're poking around online, make sure to give us a 5-star review, to like our Facebook page, and check us out on all socials. And you can email us, connect@sounduppod.com.
Sound Up is hosted by Mark Goodman and Alan Light, produced by Roger That Media, distributed by Revolver Podcasts. Theme music by Smile from Tokyo. For more information, go to sounduppod.com. Roger that.